Now let's talk about the next best practice, recursion in triggers. Up till now, we have understood two best practices. One is bulkifying the triggers. Another one is trigger helper class design pattern. Third one is this recursion in triggers. This is a trigger, right? Or let's say you're creating an account record. Then there is a before insert that gets executed, right? And that triggers the database event. And after that, there are after triggers that gets executed. And in after trigger, you create another record. And that another record has got a trigger. Which updates or trigger which has got code which is updating or which can update the account to which it is associated to. And then it will call the before update trigger, and then again it will go to the database, and then it will execute the after trigger. Then again it will go and create the contact record, right? And then again it will execute the another trigger in contact and is going to update the account. So it becomes a cycle, endless cycle, right? And that is exactly what we call as infinite recursion, right? So in order to stop this infinite recursion, like Salesforce has obviously set a particular limit that after a particular time, after this particular seconds or milliseconds, the program will automatically stop, right? But we need to handle it on our own as well, because we want this functionality to work absolutely like correctly or absolutely fine. We do not want any recursion to happen. So how we can stop that? How we can stop the recursion that happens, the indirect recursion that happens when you deal with triggers. So you're just going to have a variable, and that variable is going to store the count of the execution of the triggers. If it is the first time, execute this particular code. If it is not the first time, then in that case, not execute this code. Right? That's all what it is. So I've got this functionality. Let's have a look. I've got this code basically. Recursion and triggers, right? Over here, I'm calling this particular method case trigger helper dot my method 2, right? This is exactly the functionality that I want to execute in this particular trigger. But I've written down uh, into this if condition, right? This one case trigger helper dot is first run insert, right? So let's see what case trigger. This is case trigger helper, and inside it I've created public static variables, right? And with the help of these public static variables, I'll be able to set a lock system in which if it got executed first, then set the lock as true or set the lock as false. And next time, please do not execute this code. If it is executing for the first time, then in that case, execute it. That's what it is. So initially I've set it as true. And after setting it as true in this particular code, see what I'm doing. If case trigger helper dot is first run insert. So inside if we have got true, that the code which is there inside that block will get executed or not? Will get executed. So it will get executed. But the first thing that I'm doing is I'm setting this value as false. So even if the next time if it comes over here in this condition, will it go and execute this method? No, because it is false now. So that's how you need to handle the recursion in triggers. You need to create a public static variable in which you're going to store the flag. You can say it as a log system. You can say it as a flag system. And if the flag is true, then in that case, execute this. If the flag is false, then in that case, do not execute this. That's how it works. Make sense? Have a look at this one. So in this trigger, the execution of the code will only happen if the flag is set as true. But after this execution happens, you set this flag as false. And once you set this as false, if this goes over there, executes the code over here and comes back, it checks whether it is true or not. So it is not true, hence it's not going to execute this particular set of code. That's exactly what it is. It's simple if condition, setting a flag and unsetting it. Is it clear with everyone? How to handle recursion and triggers? Now let's see what's next. That we've got. Recursion is done. Helper class design button is done. Now let's have a look at the like conceptual things that we have missed up till now. So we completed with the trigger context variables, right? After that, there are some things that we have to take care of. There are some points that we need to consider with trigger context variables. Number one, trigger.new and trigger.old cannot be used in DML operations. That means you cannot just write down this trigger.new, or let's say trigger.new you have updated a value in trigger.new and you are writing down updated with trigger.new. You cannot do that because it will make it recursive, right? What I'm trying to say over here is, like, let's say trigger.new contains the account records. Right? So that's one thing that I'm doing over here. I'm just updating all the names, and after that, I cannot call a DML operation like this. This is not true. This cannot work. You cannot call any DML operation onto trigger.new and trigger.old, right? Because again, trigger.new has generated because of a DML operation, and you're trying to call a DML operation again onto it. That doesn't make any sense. So you cannot write it down like this. You cannot have this. Make sense? Next, you can use an S object to change its own field values using trigger.new, but only in before triggers. We have understood that earlier as well, that we can only update the values of a particular record or a particular S object in its before trigger, not in its after trigger, right? Then comes trigger.old is always read only. You cannot modify any value for trigger.old. Though you can modify the values for trigger.new, but you cannot call a DML operation. You can modify the values for trigger.new. You cannot call a DML operation. But when it comes to trigger.old, you cannot even modify the field values. That's what it is. Next, you cannot delete trigger.new. I mean, again, that's another operation. If someone's trying to create a new record and you are just writing down delete trigger.new, then no one in your organization will ever be able to create a record. So that's what it is. Next, upsert and merge events do not have their own triggers, right? Upsert and merge. So we have only understood trigger events like before insert, before update, before delete, before undelete. No, not before undelete. After insert, after update, after delete, and after undelete. These are only the trigger events that we have understood. What about upsert? Which trigger event it's gonna fire? So the records which are getting updated, it is gonna fire the before and before update and the after update trigger. And for the records which are getting inserted, it is gonna fire before insert and after insert triggers. That's what it is, right? And what about merge operation? Delete and insert. Update for which object? Like let's say account 1, account 2. We're trying to merge these records, right? C1, C2, C3, C4, and C5. For C1 and C4, contact objects update triggers. And for this, it will be delete. Everyone, is it the same answer? Huh? Sure. Okay, it's not the correct one. Let's see what is the correct one. In case of merge operation, the records which are deleted due to merge operation fires a single delete event. That means before and after delete will be fired once irrespective of the number of records deleted. So delete is gonna be fired for this one. There's no doubt with that. Sorry. Hit the next one. The master record fires a single update event, right? That means before an update triggers are going to be fired for this record. But no triggers are fired for the child records which are reparented as a result of merge operation, right? So that means delete will be fired for this account and update will be fired for this account, but no trigger will be fired for these two records. Why? So it's updations or what? Exactly, you're absolutely right. So DML operation is called onto the master record. After merge, we have written down account, right? So it is only gonna execute the triggers for the account object, not for any other object which is associated with it, right? So it is not gonna fire any trigger for the child records. Is it clear? Okay. Now another situation. You got this? What happens when in a merge operation? First, the records which are associated to the record which is getting deleted, they gets reparented, but no trigger gets fired for that. The one to which it gets reparented to fires the update trigger, and the one which gets deleted fires the delete trigger. That's what it is. So now let me give you another situation. You have to tell me what will happen in this situation. Account 1, account 2, account 3, C1, C2, C3, C4, C5, and C6. Now tell me, if I'm going to call merge operation between all these three, what is exactly going to happen? Huh? Anjali? Exactly. So for AC1, update operation will be called or update triggers will be triggered. And for AC2 and AC3, the delete operation will, the delete event will fire, the delete trigger will be fired, right? So Shreyans, tell me, how many times the update operation will be fired? Exactly. So, I mean, how many times the delete trigger will be fired? Only one time. You sure? So, what, like, where we're gonna get AC2 and AC3? Mm-hmm. I mean, it will automatically happen, right? So we will put it into a list. We'll execute the merge operation. But because of the merge operation, delete operation happens implicitly. So how many times that delete operation will happen? Because there are two records in here. We are calling the merge operation, right? Okay, it will be called only once. The reason is because you can update or delete more than one record at a single time, right? So in the trigger.new, you're going to get both of these records. That's what it is. But what people think is for AC2, delete will be fired. For AC3, delete will be fired. So delete trigger will be fired two times. No, it is not like that. The both will get deleted at the same time with a single DML operation. And with a single DML operation, there is only one time the trigger gets fired, irrespective of the number of records which are there in it. Make sense? Everyone? Cool. If you want, you can just write it down or you'll find it in the notes any which way. Let's talk about order of the events in a merge operation. Like what exactly happens first and what exactly happens next. Like first the records get deleted or the first records gets updated. Sure? Okay. So you're right. Before delete trigger fires and deletes the record from the database, and after delete trigger fires, and then before update for master record fires and records gets updated, and after update for the master record fires. So first you delete those records and then the other records gets updated. Right? That's what happens. So this is the order of event when it comes to the merge operation. Is it clear? That's how Salesforce executes or Apex executes the merge operation. Clear everyone? Cool. Let's talk about trigger exceptions. I think we've already talked about this trigger exception, right? Add error method, nothing else. Best practice bulkify triggers. Completed with this. Let's have a look at the examples that are given over here. In this, what I'm doing is account ACC trigger.new ACC address. I'm updating the address only for the first one. Instead of this, I should do it like this for each loop, right? Then comes this. I'm writing down, yeah, this is very important. I'm writing down a query inside a loop, right? And that's not good. What we should do, and why we are writing down this query. We want to get the branch which are associated with a particular account, right? So what we are doing is we are getting the list, and for every account, we are writing down a query to get the associated branch. And how? From account where account of branch underscore c is equals to br.id. Right? That's how we're doing it. So this query, this particular query will execute for n number of times if there are n records that are coming up when it comes to if there are n accounts that are coming up in the query. So that's a problem. What we should do in this case? Exactly. Use the in keyword in trigger.new. That's all what you have to write down. So if you want to get all the branches which are associated to the records or to the account records which you have got, then just write down in. With the in keyword, you can like at the end you can just add a list, and whatever IDs are there in that particular list, associated branches will you'll get the associated branches in that SQL query or as a result of that SQL query. Make sense? Not debug ACC list for account ACC list. Okay, that's fine. Then example 3. Right. So in this, what I'm doing is a DML operation is getting executed inside a loop. It should happen like that. No. What should happen? Create a list, add it into that list, and call the DML operation into that onto that list. Right. So I'm at the end updating the account to update list, and I'm adding it over here inside the for loop. That's what it is.